Hello, good afternoon. So, habang na-discuss about the Balagtasan. Balagtasan is a Filipino poetic form and was invented and performed during American occupation of the Philippines. The Balagtasan honored Francisco Baltazar, also known as Balagtas, giving his name to this form of versifying. Balagtas is the 19th century Filipino author of the Filipino epic narrative poem Florante at Laura. As a literary form, the Balagtasan was based on the traditional Filipino form of debate in verse that was popular at that time. This popularity partly accounts for its success as entertainment until after World War II. However, the Balagtasan was also the product of nationalist and anti-colonial impulse in Filipino vernacular literature during the early 20th century. The Balagtasan was used by Filipino writers and poets to express the most progressive and current political ideas then and the comment of the contemporary social issues. Although performances or the staging of Balagtasan debates faded in contemporary literary practice, the versifying is undergo a revival of sort these days with young poets writing in Filipino. Balagtasan during the American occupation, poetry was more than a personal art for the enjoyment of a small circle of initiates. At that time, it was popular art practiced by highly skilled craftsmen for the instruction of the light of a broad public. It became such a popular form of entertainment that practically every poet of the period, if he was worthy of the title of Makata, had to display his skills in declamation and argumentation as a Balagtasan poet. In, in its original form, the joust was written by only one poet with parts assigned, in the manner of a verse palette to the intended participants in the contest. Such was the first Balagtasan written by Jose Corazon de Jesus, the author of Bayan Ko, the national anthem and the national item of the EDSA Revolution. In this Balagtasan, a butterfly, paru-paru, and the bee, bubuyog, battled over the jasmine flower, kampupot. Later on, the Balagtasan assumed the form of debate in verse where the poets had to improvise in verse while arguing a position that they had been appointed to defend. Francisco Balagtas Baltazar, the literary giant of the 19th century, who wrote the famous Ave Florenti at Lara, an allegory of the sad condition of the Philippines under colonial regime of Spain. It became such a popular form of entertainment that practically every poet of the period, if he was worthy of the title of Makata, had to display his skills in declamation and argumentation as Balagtas poet. Balagtasan. The Balagtasan is a curious literary form born about second quarter of the 20th century, during the time when electronic media was just being introduced to the Philippines. The Balagtasan is probably the last poetic form which was thoroughly enjoyed by the Filipino people as a literary form. The Balagtasan is essentially tradition and can almost be said to merely a new label for an old bottle of wine. Yet, it contains elements which explain why the tradition remains contemporary and popular. Balagtasan is essentially tradition and can almost be said to be merely a new label of the old bottle of wine as what I said before. Balagtasan is a traditional Filipino art form where two protagonists debate the merits of the theme, which one supporting which one supporting it and the other arguing against it. The Balagtasan is a traditional Filipino of two protagonists which debates. Balagtasan, created by Jose Corazon de Jesus in its original form to Jaws, was written by only one poet, with part assigned in the manner of verse pilot to intended the participants in contests, such as the first Balagtasan written by Jose Corazon, the author Bayan Ko. Who is Jose Corazon de Jesus? Jose Corazon de Jesus is the first king of Balagtasan, a poetical house popular during the early decades of the 20th century. Balagtasan became so popular after the first contest that a big competition was held in 1925 between the most popular Tagalog poets at the time, Jose Corazon de Jesus, who used the pen name Joseng Batute, and Florentino Colantes, who used the name Contil Butil. The theme was the Filipina maiden, the traditional or the modern reincarnation. The judge gave the victory to De Jesus, who championed the Filipina of the past. He was crowded as a King Balagtasan. Balagtasan is Filipino form of debate done in verse. The term is derived from the surname of Francisco Balagtas. When was the Balagtasan invented? It was invented April 1924. Balagtasan, a Filipino form of debate in which rhyming verses are created spontaneously with topics ranging from Philippine politics to culture, was named after him. The first Balagtasan took place in Manila in April 1924 with Jose Corazon de Jesus and Florentino Colantes as the participants. In Balagtasan, the Balagtasan trimmed the Duplo format in terms of number of participants and length of presentation. The protagonists in the Balagtasan are still required to be skillful in memorizing long verses with rhyme and meter and reciting with flair, as they say, con todo forma, in public. The difference between Duplo and Karagatan. Duplo is a poetic kind of a game. It is played in the backyard of the house. Usually, an old man or woman starts the game. It is played when there is a man or a woman who died. Duplero and Duplero are the nicknames of the people who will play if the game isn't starting yet. Balagtasan. It is a verbal joust in verse. It is usually conducted in Tagalog or other native dialects. In the rural Philippines, where there were very limited forms of entertainment, poetry contests preceded the Balagtasan. In a basically oral culture, eloquence in poetry was highly honored and prized. Among the Tagalogs and Kapampangans, they had the Karagatan, the Duplo, and Juego de Prenda. In Balagtasan, there are usually three performers: Lakandiwa, which is male, or Lakambibi. Lakambini, rather, the female, who introduces the topic and the contestants acts of referee in case the debate gets too heated, and decides who wins or loses. Sometimes a board of judges may be appointed to decide the winner, or the decision may be left to the audience who decide the winner by the intuition and duration of applause for each of those contestants for or against the topic, based on the poet's eloquence, stage presence, dramatic gestures, and self-confidence, and projected on the stage. The Balagtasan on dual citizenship was held at the Philippine Consulate in Vancouver in the summer of 2015. It was presented by the UP Ateneo Alumni Association of Vancouver. The idea came from the poetic minds of the two native of the Pampanga province, Deputy Congjen Anthony Mandap of San Luis and Professor Prod. After arguing, it also judging who wins or loses in Balagtasan is based on a number of factors. First, the arguments must be delivered in a verse following strict rules of rhyme and cadence. Second, the lines must follow the rhythmic cadence, even it means talking liberties with syntax. Third, winning depends on other factors such as logic, reasoning, choice of words with deep meaning, reference to topical subjects, and most important of all, the use of humor because the essence of Balagtasan is the ability to entertain. The Balagtasan is dual citizenship was held at the Philippines Consulate in Vancouver in the summer 2015. It was presented by the UP Ateneo Alumni Association of Vancouver. Note that Balagtasan was held in the stadium. Records note that the largest Balagtasan audience gathered was on October 16, 1925 in Olympic Stadium in Avenia, Rizal, where 8,000 to 15,000 people attended to witness the poetic shout. Senators, people from the academy, government officials, and even Emilio Aguinaldo himself attended. Jose Corazon de Jesus, more popularly known by his respondent name Joseng Batute, won in that match and was given the title Hari ng Balagtasan, King of Balagtasan. That's all. Thank you.